Considering home security? Consider this. For 140 years, ADT has helped stop more crime than any other home security company. The yard sign isn't just a sign, it's a line in the sand. It's no wonder 5 times more people choose ADT to protect their homes. Visit ADT.com to learn more. For license information and terms and conditions, visit ADT.com.
Glad you're with us, Golic and Wingo on ESPN Radio and ESPN2. We are on this Thursday morning, presented by Progressive Insurance, and all phone guests join us via the Shell Pennzoil Performance.
The most impressive thing, we asked this early on, what are you more impressed with? LeBron basically playing at his best 15 years in. He's going to be 33 years old, and all the miles he has on his body already. Tom Brady, who's 40 and still playing at MVP level, is there one more impressive? Now, again, if you give an answer, it doesn't mean you're slighting the other.
Correct.
But I think we talk about the physical aspect. To me, the most amazing thing to me for them is from the neck up.
Yes.
How smart they are. Just Brady with his study, and obviously he's been at it for a while, pre-snap reads, getting everybody in the right position. LeBron was seeing the entire court, kind of being that step ahead, like in a chess player or a pool player, being that shot or that step ahead. To me, that's some of the most impressive stuff, is their ability to mentally handle the game as they get older as well.
Absolutely, and the adjustments that both Tom is making and LeBron is making. Remember, this Cavs team started out not great. Okay, yeah. The start of the season not great for them, but they've somehow turned that around without Derrick Rose, and still don't have Isaiah Thomas, and we're looking at a 13-game winning streak, and it could be added on with the opponents that are coming up next. And someone did point in as we asked that question on our Twitter page. What about Jaromir Jagr? And that's true.
That is true.
Jaromir Jagr is playing in the NHL at the age of 45.
It's ridiculous.
I mean, that's insane. Now, obviously, it's not.
He's not at the level
Correct.
he was, where we're talking Tom Brady's still at MVP level, and so is LeBron James. But to be out there in that sport, the physicality of that sport is really impressive.
Yeah, 1 goal and 6 assists in 17 games. Not slighting him in any way, shape, or form. Just saying the productivity we're seeing from Brady and LeBron at their respectively advanced ages in the sports they're playing is incredible. But hey, again, tip of the cap to Jagr for still being out there. I mean, here's how old or long Jagr has been playing. I remember him warming up for a game in Pittsburgh in the 90s, right before the Cowboys and Steelers were set to play in Super Bowl 30. And he was running stairs at the old Igloo in Pittsburgh wearing a Cowboys jersey, and some people were getting on him and booing him about it because the Steelers and Cowboys were about to play. The phrase that includes Cowboys and playing in the Super Bowl is a long time ago.
It is. You're not kidding.
A long time ago. That's how long he's been playing. Again, Stugotz will join us in just a few minutes from the Dan Le Batard Show and Stugotz. But first, Aaron Boone, who used to work for us, spent a lot of years in the majors, introduced as the Yankees' new manager yesterday. Boone has been in baseball his entire life. His whole family is one of the great families in all of baseball, with his brothers and his father, so he knows exactly what he's getting into.
Obviously, this is a team with loads of talent. This is a team that in many ways came of age this year and arrived, and I'm really comfortable and believe that me and my staff will be part of helping them take the next step. And obviously the expectations here with the New York Yankees is to win championships. And certainly that's always the goal when we set out each and every year. But what I'm most looking forward to is the chance to have an impact on young men, on young ball players, and being a part of them taking the next step to now become championship level players.
Well, that is the next step, right? They got to the ALCS. The question is, when are we winning the next one?
I'm always interested in all sports how coaching and or managerial processes change. We saw it in the NFL a couple of years ago with the quarterback whisperers that became the hot hire. You know, in college, sometimes it can be the hot O coordinator or the hot D coordinator. What are you going for? If you had a old school tough guy coach, your next coach was a player's coach, a more, player friendly guy. So I'm always interested in where you are. And in baseball now, it's so much numbers. You just heard him wanting to get involved in the people's lives or develop the players. So is that where we are? Are you the CEO? Are you the psychologist? What are you now when you run a team in any sport? In this day and age when, your top guys, and Aaron Judge is 25, Gregorius is 27, you have a younger some of your top players, younger players, where the thought process was this year maybe they would hit it, and they did last year. So now, listen, you're a Yankee, the expectations are always high. But even last year, the expectations were a year away. And then what they went and did, now the expectations for this year are going to be World Series or bust, right? I mean, that's what...
They went to Game 7 of the ALCS.
It almost is that way anyway, but it really kind of magnified it with what they did in the postseason this year. So he's stepping into that. And then there's the gut and numbers game of baseball. No game has gone more to numbers. It's always been a numbers game, but gone more to... the numbers and the percentages and those things than baseball, those algorithms now, than any other sport. So now, is it that? When do you get to use your gut? Do you do it anymore, or are you just a paint-by-numbers guy?
Well, that's the interesting thing, because what was the other quote that Aaron Boone said? I'm going to be deep into the process, right? I'm going to be deep into the process of figuring out how all this works. And that was sort of the issue with Joe Girardi, right? I mean, he for example, in that game against the Indians, I think it was Game 2 in Cleveland, he took out CeCe Sabathia when he had a certain number of pitches. They were up 5-0. It was 77 pitches, I think, in the fifth inning, and he was dealing. And then, of course, it all fell apart after he took CeCe Sabathia out. So the line becomes, where do you say the numbers are hard, fast, or we're like, you know what? Things are going good right now.
I'm going to let it go.
Why mess with this? And that's the thing that I think is going to be interesting for him going forward.
Yeah, I do as well. And a guy, no managerial experience, has been, after the game, has been here working at ESPN for the last 10 years. We saw this happen with Jason Kidd, who retired and immediately went onto the bench. So it is always interesting because most NFL coaches never played football,
right?
And they're running teams. So, and in baseball, you see a lot of managers or people who did play baseball. So, first time for him, as you mentioned, a lifer with he and his family being involved in the game, and now a guy taking on some major responsibility in New York.
Well, we sort of have fun with the WAR stat, wins above replacement, because who's replacing you, and it's sort of like a mythical unicorn of a
mythical average person.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The Yankees got 23 wins above replacement from position players aged 27 or younger last year. The only teams with more were the Astros and Cubs, and obviously the last two World Series champs.
There you go.
So in the mythical unicorn of whoever that is replacing you, things look very good for the Yankees, I guess is what we're saying going forward.
Smart people doing all that number stuff.
Don't quite understand it, but I'm told it's important.
There you go. Well, when you mention the teams and what they just accomplished, there's obviously something to it.
That's a way I can understand
There you go.
There's no other way I can understand it, but I can understand it that way. All right, we continue on Golic and Wingo, and as we do every week, we are delighted to be joined by Stugotz from the Dan Le Batard Show with Stugotz. Hey, Stu, we've been playing a lot of, obviously, that Mike Mitchell rant the Pittsburgh safety had. Have you guys been having some fun with that as well? What did you think of all the things he was saying about the state of the game and what's a finable offense, what's a suspendable offense, and everything else he had to say in that rant?
Good morning, guys. Yeah, I mean, that sound came out after our show yesterday, and I'm certain we'll play it a lot today. It was great sound and hard to disagree with anything that he had to say. I heard you guys talking about it on the way in this morning. I don't know, Mike. Maybe you can explain it to me. I don't know how you change the game, because the NFL is trying to, tell everyone that it's player safety first, and I don't know if I actually believe that, and I'm not certain that anyone really believes that it's player safety first. I think the NFL cares, like all big businesses, cares about the bottom line. They care about how much money they're going to make and how much, television ratings and stuff like that. I don't believe player safety is top on their priority list, even though they like to pretend that it actually is. But, Mike, I don't get how you change the game with Ryan Shazier. Listen, you could do, and certainly the NFL has done this, and I give them credit for doing it. You could try to make the game safer. But as long as guys who are 6'3", 6'4", 6'5", weighing 250 pounds are physical specimens like the guys we see every Sunday in the NFL, you're going to have guys who come in, even though they're taught to keep their head up, to keep the helmet up, to tackle with the shoulder, occasionally just body angles, speed, you're going to forget. You're going to come in and tackle the way Shazier tackled, and then Juju Smith-Schuster, all that kind of stuff. That's the stuff I grew up loving about football. Vontaze Burfict has been, kind of a thorn in the Steelers' side, and he's had some dirty hits as well. And so Juju Smith-Schuster put that hit on him and then stood over him, and that's some of the stuff that I love about sports and I love about the NFL. But, Mike, maybe you can explain this to me, because Mitchell is right. Everyone is out for themselves. He's out for himself. He's trying to make as much money as he can. in the short amount of time he has to play this game. The NFL is trying to make as much money as they can. Jerry Jones is trying to make as much money as they can. Everyone seems to be out for themselves. So, Mike, explain this to me. How are you going to change the physicality of the sport when you have really big, great athletes going top speed trying to take each other's heads off?
Well,
how's it going to change?
I mean, there's a couple of ways. I certainly get your point. And for me, as a former player, it's still difficult because I'm 30,000 feet above it now. I'm not in the bang-bang moment of it. You're right. You can never make the game safe. We're talking about, especially at younger age and up through, safer. What you could do with the Ryan Shazier with his head down, all you can do is try and teach different technique. From a younger, and this generation of guys in the NFL have learned it a certain way. Let's see in the next 10 years, 12 years, when these 10-year-olds are now in the NFL, let's see if we see something different. Now, you're right. It's not going to stop it, but what you can do, like in anything else, Stu, if something happens 1,000 times and then X amount of years later it happens 200 times, well, that's better, isn't it? So we've made it a little bit better. And listen, that crackback block by Juju Schuster-Smith, we lived for those. We sat in our meetings and got $100 for a $100 hit. I mean, that's how it was. But the one thing players have to understand, and now you know that's illegal. And you know exactly when you're doing it, when you're coming back to the line or horizontal to the line. You know that now. So you just have to learn to not do it. It's more those plays over the middle that aggravate me when, okay, you have a player thinking about, I'm not going to hit that guy in the head, and then that receiver's level changes, and now all of a sudden you grazed him or you hit him in the head, and you're out $40,000. That stuff, Stu, I don't know what's going to happen there, especially if you compound it by adding the ridiculous targeting thing that's in college right now, put in the NFL, which I hate. So it's difficult to do. To your overall point, you're never going to make the game safe. Can you make it safer in the next generation coming through by tackling smarter and then having a full generation learn the new rules and coming up playing those rules in Little League, in high school, in college, and then when they get to the NFL, they have now played by those rules for the last decade, so it's more ingrained in their head, hopefully.
But, Mike, you can make it safer, and those are all great points. You can make it safer. You brought up the car analogy this morning where I look back when I was a kid, and I can't believe that we were driving without seatbelts, and it wasn't a law. But so now we have to wear seatbelts. We all know it's the right thing to do. And the NFL should put in as many safety precautions as possible to keep these players safe. I get that. But occasionally stuff is still going to happen. So now I wear my seatbelt. I am taught to wear my seatbelt. It's a law to wear my seatbelt, and I wear it. But accidents are still going to happen. I've been taught to look in my mirror before I change lanes, to put my blinker on. You know what? I've been taught that. I do it just about every time. But occasionally, I don't do it. And I'm still going to get in a car accident, and that's on me. I guess what I'm saying is you can put all the safety precautions in as you want in this game, but occasionally stuff like Ryan Shazier and stuff like Juju Smith-Schuster and Vontaze Burfict, that stuff's going to happen because they're big athletes. They're moving very fast. The levels change very quickly for them. I heard you guys talking about it. I hate to be a safety, a cornerback, a linebacker right now in the NFL because it's very, very difficult. But you can put all the safety measures in that you want. Occasionally stuff like this is going to happen. There's nothing you can do about it.
Completely agree. It's all about what your level of success is. With car accidents, when seatbelts were said you had to wear them, did 60% of crashes go down to 20% of crashes or 40%? Right. And did we say, oh, that's good? Because you're right. And things like that, we're never going to completely get rid of it. It's always going to happen. It's just a matter of what you feel your success point is of having it happen less.
Well, look, Doug Baldwin, the Seahawks wide receiver, put it out there. He said, and he's right. And he said, football is not a contact sport. Ballroom dancing is a contact sport. This is a tweet of his. He said football is a collision sport.
Yeah, it is.
And that's never going to change. And the players know this. And the question then becomes, can you do anything to just sort of lessen that impact? You're right, Stu. It's never going to change. You can't legislate hitting out of football. It's not going to happen. The things that I think the NFL maybe is trying to do is, can we legislate less hits? We've seen the Ivy League schools. They do not have padded practices anymore. They don't hit in practice. They practice tackling on tackling dummies. The CFL has done away with almost all padded practices. I think there are no padded practices for the idea that, look, we know these collisions are coming, but if we can find any way to limit them going forward, it'll be better for the players. But you can't you cannot legislate hitting out of football. It's not going to happen.
No, Troy, you're right. I found the reaction to be very funny. I think it's tough for generations like mine, so I've seen the NFL back when Mike Golic was playing in the NFL, and it was a completely different game. You go back 15 years, it was a completely different game. There's an entire generation who's only going to know this style of NFL. Where it gets tough for me is I've seen what the NFL used to be. I like that product better than the product that I'm seeing right now, and I think that's the difficult part for fans like myself, because that reaction was a crazy reaction where you have John Gruden in the Monday night booth. John Gruden, who coached John Lynch, for crying out loud, saying what he saw was disgusting and he hopes the NFL cleans it up. It's a tough shift for fans like me, people of my age who saw, Mike Golic and, Clyde Simmons and Reggie White just tear people's heads off, and now you're seeing what you see today, and everyone has some crazy reaction to it. It's difficult as a fan to kind of navigate through it.
Yeah, well, look, we're all in that together. We really are for fans of a certain age, right? We move on. Golic and Wingo here. Stugotz joining us from the Dan Le Batard Show with Stugotz. Look, we've enjoyed this promo that's been running all morning with your voice. It says, hey, big game in the NFC South, Saints-Falcons. We're not going to talk about it on the Dan Le Batard Show with Stugotz. So now we get a chance to talk about it here then. So get out your football Jones here instead of dealing it with Dan and everybody else. What do you think about tonight's game?
Yes, Trey, because what I mean when I say that, when I do that promo, is Dan's not going to talk about it. I'd love to talk about it, but Le Batard ain't talking about it.
So here's your chance. Go. Fire.
I am so impressed with this Saints team. I'm confused by the Falcons team. I'm confused by both teams because coming into the season, I thought the Falcons were going to repeat as NFC champions, and we're not certain they'll even make the playoffs. And I didn't think the Saints were going to be very good. In fact, after a couple of weeks, I said the Drew Brees and Sean Payton marriage, that thing needs to split up, and the Saints need to go in a different direction. Clearly, I was wrong. What I'm so impressed about with the New Orleans Saints is just how good that defense is and really just how good that running game has become, because that's going to prolong Drew Brees' career. It certainly helped him out this year where he doesn't have to put the ball up in the air 50, 60 times every game, where you have, Kamara and you have Mark Ingram, and Kamara as exciting a player as we have right now in the NFL. And Mark Ingram has been fantastic. That's been the surprising part for me, where the Saints, they have this incredible defense, this incredible running game. They have an all-time great at quarterback, and I can see the Saints representing the NFC out of the NFL. But I was just thinking about this on the way in. It's why Dan and I always say to preview any of this stuff is meaningless, because I don't care who you are. We have no idea. Everyone came into this season thinking the Falcons were loaded. They're going to repeat as NFC champions, and the Saints were going to be dreadful. And here we are. The Saints look like they could be the team to represent the NFC, and the Falcons might not make the playoffs. The NFL is a tough thing to predict.
Real quick, because I want to get two of these Beef Stews in. What's more surprising to you, the Saints at 9-3 or the Rams at 9-3?
Wow, that's a great question. Both teams very surprising. I guess I'd say the Rams, just because at least with the Saints, you knew they had Drew Brees headed into the season. You knew they had a guy who's won a Super Bowl before. I think the Rams have shocked everyone. Just, to make that coaching change in 1 year to kind of get Jared Goff figured out. That's the thing, right? Because last year, we left with a pretty bad impression, bad taste in our mouth as it related to Jared Goff. No one, I don't care. I don't even know if their head coach expected this. No one expected Jared Goff to be this good this quickly with their new head coach. So I guess the Rams, to answer your question.
A little less than an hour. We had a chance yesterday to talk to Jared Goff. We're going to play that in a little less than an hour, the quarterback for the Rams, who are getting ready to play the Eagles. All right. Do you have more beef with Rob Gronkowski's late hit or the NFL suspending him for one game?
I have a beef. This is the time, guys, where I have beef with both. I have beef with the hit. I mean, what Gronk did, that was a cheap shot. It was just, that wasn't Gronk being Gronk. That was Gronk being a dirty player. That was Gronk being cheap. I didn't like that at all. But I have a bigger beef with the NFL and them only giving him a one-game suspension. And let's be honest, that game this weekend is against the Dolphins on Monday night. So Gronk just got a pain-free weekend down here in South Beach, and Lord knows what Gronk's going to do down here with 3 days to kill, and Art Basel down here and everything going on. So I can't believe they suspended him. After seeing all these other suspensions, guys, it makes it even worse. The fact that Rob Gronkowski got one game for doing that, for what the people who are watching on TV are seeing right now on their television screens, to me is ludicrous. And if the NFL truly cared about cleaning up this league, they would make that penalty a lot stiffer to prevent players from doing it. Gronk is getting a week off in South Beach, a game against the Dolphins. The Patriots going to win that game with or without him. And you start to think a little bit, hey, does the NFL, because they got a big game coming up, not this weekend, but next weekend, Patriots and Steelers, do they want Gronk active for that game? You start thinking about all that stuff with everything that's going on in the NFL. But I got a big problem with Gronk only getting one game there.
Well, I think that's a fair point. But first of all, I'm pretty sure that Bill will make sure he's not having a free weekend in South Beach. I mean,
quite honestly, I don't think he can go.
I don't think he even goes.
I don't think he can go. He's suspended. He can't be with the team. So unless he's just going to go down there and party on his own, I guess we wouldn't put it past him.
Has Gronk given you any impression that he cares about what Belichick or anyone else tells him to do?
That's a good point.
During the season,
the one guy the Patriots can't control is Rob Gronkowski.
During the season, yes. Off season, completely different scenario. And
all right.
I'm not willing to go down the conspiracy theory rabbit hole with you there on making sure the NFL making sure that Gronk's there for the Steelers game either. But I do appreciate the effort. I wanted you to know that.
All right.
Well, Trey, let me ask you this: if someone did that to Tom Brady, how many games would they be suspended for? If someone did that same thing to Brady, how many games?
You're right. I don't know the answer to that, but you're right. We've talked about this a lot. There should have been a longer suspension, and the NFL is actually thinking about using this and implementing what's going to be called, for lack of a better term, the Gronk rule next year if there's a clear intent to hurt somebody after a play like the Mike Evans hit on Marshawn Lattimore, which also was one game.
Stu, that's why I don't think it would have been more, because every player would have had the Mike Evans suspension to fall back on. You could have suspended somebody who hit Brady for 3 games, and they'd just say, wait a minute, Mike Evans got one, did basically the same thing, hit somebody in the back who wasn't looking after a play. So I think the NFL kind of boxed himself in, so I'm hoping they maybe put something in place that goes more along those lines. So
I think there's a separate rule, Mike, where if you hit Brady or hit Aaron Rodgers like that, you're out for an entire season. I think the NFL would suspend you for the entire season, maybe for life. Yeah. Maybe they ban you for life.
Anthony Barr hit Aaron Rodgers and there wasn't a flag.
That's true. That's true.
You know, okay. Fair point, Trey.
Ended his season there. But I guarantee they may look at that. You know, remember after the Brady rule in 2008?
Yeah.
They changed where you can hit. Yeah. So you may be on to something that they'll look in the offseason, but obviously it didn't happen this time. All right, Stu, we appreciate you being with us. We'll see you on the Le Batard Show
Stu.
coming up after we're done.
See you.
All right, Trey, I got to tell you, man, like we're almost 2 weeks into this, and you look great because we make the joke all the time. We have a friend down here who started doing morning shows at the same time Barack Obama became the president, and we said over 8 years he aged more than the president of the United States. So you look great, man. You're walking around like a zombie, though, the entire day, right?
Oh, without question. I have no idea where I'm going next. They just point me somewhere, and then I go to a camera and talk. I got nothing. I'm dead inside. That's why. Stugotz, thanks. We appreciate it, man.
See you, man.
All right, guys. Talk to you soon.
Hey everyone, Mike Golic here. Support for Mike and Mike podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Chances are you're confident when it comes to your work, your hobbies, your life. Rocket Mortgage gives you that same level of confidence when it comes to buying a home or refinancing your existing home loan. With Rocket Mortgage, you can apply simply and understand fully so you can mortgage confidently. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/Mikes. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states, NMLSconsumeraccess.org number 3030.
I just saved hundreds of dollars by switching to Geico. I'm so happy, I feel like I can fly.
Disclaimer, you will not be able to fly by switching to Geico. This is against the laws of physics and nature. If you find yourself flying, please seek professional and or medical help immediately. In the unlikely event you find yourself flying, you might be a superhero, or a pigeon, or a superhero named Pidgewoman, who was bitten by a radioactive pigeon. If you are indeed Pidgewoman, Geico retains all licensing publishing rights in the event Pidgewoman the movie becomes a top-grossing Hollywood blockbuster.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
We continue to purr through Golic and Wingo on this Thursday morning on ESPN Radio and ESPN2. I heard what you said, big man. We're presented by Progressive Insurance. All phone guests join us via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, but every once in a while, someone like Adam Schefter drops in person, in studio to give us the Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, no contracts. Straight talk here, obviously, Adam, is that Roger Goodell got the contract extension. Jerry Jones, despite his best efforts, was not able to delay it.
Yep.
However, you said something very interesting, which is you think that there are still things Jerry Jones is trying to fight here.
Well,
what can he stop now at this point?
No, listen, the contract is done. So Jerry is not going to prevail there. But again, I think he got his message heard. I think he brought a lot of attention to the issue. Look, we've never seen in the history of sports a commissioner's contract so openly discussed and openly debated. And I know Arthur Blank told Peter King that they were very transparent. I don't know that it was exactly like that they were very transparent. It just, all these things happened to come out over time. And so everybody got to take an up-close look at that contract. I know a lot of people have been wondering, did Roger get the free private jet? Did he get life care? Well, NFL employees basically get long-term health care after they leave. So, in a way, you don't have to ask. He's going to have health care for life once he leaves that job. And then, also in relation to the Jet, the league office has an arrangement, so he can buy some of that time that the league gets in a discounted price. So he can basically have a portion of that for all those wanting to know if he did get the private jet. He has access to that private jet, yes.
So,
so it's a big win for the big guy.
It's a big, and listen, getting past a lot of people saying, how does he get paid that? And the bottom line is, as I said, whoever's negotiating a contract anywhere, anybody can say no. You ask for what you want, and if both sides agree, then that's what you pay the guy. So
I remember back when I was in Denver, I called the great agent Jack Mills at the time. The Broncos had signed this offensive lineman named Don Maggs, if my memory serves me correctly, in 1993.
I was a teammate of Don Maggs in Houston.
And it was like a 3 or $5 million deal, which at the time seemed like a lot of money. And I called Jack and I said, Jack, is he worth 3 years and $5 million? And Jack said, Adam, if somebody is willing to pay you something, then you're worth it.
That's exactly right.
In this particular case, the owners are willing to pay Roger Goodell $200 million.
So on that note, so that's done. And listen, more power to anybody getting what they can get. I have zero problem with that. But going forward, when the owners have to make decisions now for the good of the game going forward, how is the relationships? You know, you had that compensation committee that Jerry Jones was going to serve papers to, which everybody has egos, but with billionaires, maybe the egos get even more inflated. Like, wait a minute, you're going to do that to us? So what, if any, is there a fallout from this?
Well, I think it's been made public that there are owners, not just Jerry, who are unhappy with what's gone on in the league office and the way that some of it is structured. So I don't know that we've heard the last of that just yet. I think Jerry and Roger, I think they're fine. Like, they were in a room together at the meetings at the league office last week, I believe it was, and it was very cordial.
Well, how about Jerry and Arthur Blank? That's what I mean, like owner to owner.
Right.
You know what? You know, when you're going to serve papers on another owner.
You know what I would say to that? All these things fade over time, number one. And number two, I don't think Jerry cares. I don't think he cares. So Arthur Blank is mad at Jerry?
Yeah.
Fine. Whatever. Who cares?
Well, it's funny, to that point, I was working in St. Louis when there was an NFL owners meeting in Chicago, and that's when Jerry sort of went outside the NFL trust and, swooshed up.
How'd that work out?
Swooshed up Texas Stadium and signed the deal with I think, Pepsi when the NFL dealership was Coke. And we were there when he got served that $500 million lawsuit. He looked over the pages and said, really? That's all they're suing me for? I've been sued for a lot more than this. And then he countersued, and he actually won, and everybody made money because of what Jerry Jones did, because it allowed not only there to be national endorsements, but local endorsements for every team.
Hey, Jerry is going to do what he thinks is best. And he doesn't care who's upset about it. He doesn't care if Arthur Blank's not sending him a holiday card anymore. Like, it doesn't matter to him anymore. It's fine.
All right, so what does matter, though? We saw the Mike Mitchell rant that went off, and we've been talking about this a lot. The problem,
he got Matt Hasselbeck in the strap now,
how
too.
about that, right? I didn't hear what Matt said in relation to that, but
he called Mike Mitchell a dirty player.
Yeah,
Mike Mitchell did not like that.
Yeah, Mike Mitchell did not like that at all. And I've seen Mike play for a lot of years.
I don't think he's a dirty player.
I don't think he's a dirty player. But that's our opinions,
right?
And
everybody's allowed to.
Everybody's entitled to their own. But Mike Mitchell's going to be out there on the field. Were you surprised that Andy Reid made the move he did to take down Marcus Peters, his corner? Everything's on the line here this weekend.
So what?
Yeah.
You know what I would say to that?
Adam, so flippantly. So what?
You know what I would say to that? Like, again, and I'm a little disappointed us because we love to make big deals out of things. That's what we do. But the truth of the matter is, this should have been a huge deal on Monday.
Yep. Well, we had a million other things.
But that's
on.
exactly what I was going to say to you. Like, the Giants fired their head coach and GM in season for the first time since 1976 and basically made wholesale changes within their organization. One of the most tradition-rich, historic franchises there is in sports, blew out everybody. And you had the Gronk hit on Sunday, and Gronk's one of the most popular players in sports, and everybody's talking about that. So Marcus Peters became a footnote on Monday. And on any other Monday where the Giants aren't firing their people, where Gronk isn't WWE moving
Tre'Davious White
at that time, Marcus Peters would have been all over SportsCenter all day, throwing a flag into the stands,
then walking off the field,
and then coming back in, thinking he was rejected. Exactly, coming back onto the field without your socks on, and basically it was embarrassing, the whole thing. And so Andy Reid, to his credit, did the right thing yesterday, suspended him for a game. I don't care that they're playing the Raiders, the division title. They had Marcus Peters last Sunday. that work out for the defense.
Yeah, it hasn't worked out too.
Stunk.
He's been out there on the field for a while now. The defense, it hasn't worked out. So let me go back to the Eli thing for a moment then, before we break. What's the relationship? I'm talking a lot of relationship talking this morning. Maybe I need to sit down on the couch with someone. The relationship with Eli and the Maris. I mean, because we don't know Spagnuolo, what's going to happen there. So,
and you know what? Listen, I think when they fired everybody this week, I really believe that hit the reset button. It was great fodder for a week. Hey, what's going to happen with Eli in the future? Where's he going to go? But the fact of the matter is, we don't know who the GM is going to be. We don't know who the head coach is going to be. We don't know how they're going to feel about Eli. And I think we could all sit here and safely say that the Giants are going to be and have been looking for a quarterback in the draft. There's nothing wrong with that.
Didn't they take Davis Webb in the third round?
They took Davis Webb in the third round. Mm-hmm. Maybe they like Davis Webb, and maybe they don't. You can never draft enough quarterbacks, as Ron Wolf knows. But even if they go and take a quarterback with their first pick, what could be better than having that guy learn from Eli Manning for a year or two? Look what Jimmy Garoppolo did. Look what Aaron Rodgers did. So, again, and by the way, who's to say at this age Eli can even make it through a season anymore, even though he did start 210 straight games? So, to me, you go take a quarterback. I think the door is completely open on a return to New York. Eli himself has said he doesn't see himself playing anywhere else other than New York with the Giants. Yeah. So I think those are the options you're looking at right now.
Who knew that the one that would stop Eli Manning's streak would be Ben McAdoo? Not a defensive player, but Ben McAdoo. All right, Schefty, stick with us, because coming up, you're going to tell us how likely it is that the NFL adopts a targeting rule like the college game, which, much to Mike Golic's dismay,
a lot of people's dismay,
and maybe a Gronk rule going forward after what we saw have to hit on Tre'Davious, right? All right, we continue on Golic and Wingo. Glad you're here with us. Adam Schefter hanging out with us in the studio. Lots to get into, Adam. But first and foremost, we think there was some good news over the last day when Ryan Shazier, the Steelers linebacker, was able to be moved from Cincinnati back to Pittsburgh. What more can you tell us there?
First of all, I guess we can only go by what we actually see, the hard facts. It's such a sensitive situation, and everybody's thinking of him. But the fact that he's gone back to Pittsburgh is a good sign.
Yes.
I think there is some quiet, guarded optimism, but he's still going through tests. Nobody knows for sure. I think the signs are encouraging right now, but everybody's waiting for this update about whether he's going to be okay, and that hasn't come just yet. Right. And I get the sense it will, but I also have been told that he's still going through a lot of tests. They're being very careful, and everybody, at the very least, we know has Ryan Shazier in our thoughts and prayers.
That is the toughest part.
Yes.
You would thought by now you would hear something, because, as I said, everybody in the world was just watching and waiting for his legs to move, and that's what we wanted to see. And we've heard teammates that said they talked to him where he said he'd had sensation in all of his limbs, but we haven't heard really anything more than that. So, man, again, prayers up there and fingers crossed, no doubt about that. Back on the field in the talk, this is, again, the offseason, the competition committee and the rules gang talking about the possibility of implementing in some form, or maybe in the form it is fully right now in college, of the targeting rule, again, where a player could actually be thrown out of the game for a hit to the head. Does that I know they're going to discuss it. Mm-hmm. Do we think there's legs to this where I'm going to lose my mind even more?
Yeah, no, listen, if the league is talking
we
about
know where you stand, big guy.
If the league is talking about it right now, the competition committee is certainly going to be discussing it during the year, during the offseason. I think there's a real chance it gets adopted. Now, again, if you go back to the offseason last year, the competition committee made it a point of emphasis to emphasize that flagrant hits would be hit with ejections this year, which is why we've gotten 10 players suspended due to these types of incidents, or now 9, being that Ilocos was withdrawn. But you're seeing more of that. The competition committee has tried to come up with ways to improve the game, make it safer, make it more consistent. Look, it's an inherently unsafe game. They got to do what they can. And so, I think there's a real chance that does happen next offseason.
Well, obviously.
Sorry there, Mike.
Yeah. Well, there's the one thing that I didn't like about what Troy Vincent said there, it's worked to a degree. Well, let's make sure it works to a better degree if we're going to adopt that in the NFL.
I guess my point is we're already in a gray area with how things have been done, and now, to me, it seems like we're going to add another layer to it.
Right. Well, we seem to do that every year to the officials, and I will say this: the officials in the NFL
tough.
They get criticized all the time. I would ask anyone that criticizes these officials to try and do all the things that they are asked to do and process
at
that
full speed,
at the speed in which you see it for the first time, not on the replays. That that's so clear and obvious. It's a completely different dynamic when it's coming at you at warp speed. And the other report, Adam, was there may be some sort of momentum being built to implement, for lack of a better term, a Gronk rule. If there's a hit like Mike Evans, for example, put on Marshawn Lattimore that had nothing to do with the play, when he ran into his back, or Gronk falling on Tre'Davious White, that would have a separate category with a stiffer penalty involved.
Well, I think what they talked about, what they are talking about, is a certain sort of infraction schedule. Sort of like if you penalized a rough at the passer, you're fined a certain amount. If you use obscene language, you're fined a certain amount. There's a schedule for fines. And I think what they're going to do is they're going to come up with a schedule for these types of plays. The Gronk play, the Mike Evans, but whatever play it is, you hit a player after the play, which we could just call it like that, right? After the play, after the whistle's blown, the play is dead, and a player gets hit and knocked to the ground or knocked out or whatever it may be, you're going to get suspended 1 game. If you hit a player with a punch, it's going to be 2 games. I'm just making these things up, but there's a clear-cut schedule that you assign a category to, just like they have for fines right now. That's where they come up with these fines. It falls into a certain category, and they say, okay, well, you violated the social media policy. You wore your socks too high. You were guilty of unnecessary roughness, and each thing has a certain fine. And I think they would do the same thing here.
Listen, I agree.
That way they can be consistent.
I have always said
that's what Mike Mitchell has been ranting.
It's exactly right, because I've always said athletes live by an itinerary, being told where to be, what to do, what time to do it, what to wear in some cases. And most of us don't. It takes the thinking out of anything, and I don't mind that. So it's nice to look at a sheet that say, you do this, it costs you this. You do this, it costs you that. At least then you know, and it's not like, I did that. Boy, now what's going to happen? Am I going to get this or am I going to get this? At least you know what's there. So there is something to that. And then it's about enforcing it and sticking to it once you finally do it.
All right, so let's put this, we do over, under, or fill in the blank here on Golic and Wingo. What are the odds that, let's say, we have a targeting rule? What would you put the odds at? In 2018, there will be some form of a targeting rule in the NFL.
I mean, we're just guessing. I would guess we do. I'm not going to give a number to it, but I would guess we do.
And the same thing you think for a rule about, more specific about plays that are don't happen within the
league
context
is very
of the game.
aware of the conversations that are out there, right? Yeah. And there's nobody out there who can't say that the league, or there's nobody out there who can say the league has been consistent in this. I don't think. That's one of the big complaints right now, right? That Gronk gets 1 game and George Aloka gets 1 game and Juju Smith-Schuster gets 1 game. And are these infractions all the same? Are they just the same? No. So I think if the league hears all this conversation and it's very aware of all this, it's certainly aware of the perception and images, it tries to combat that, and it tries to come up with ways to make the game safer. And if that helps, then why not do it? I agree to that part of it. I think there will be more of a schedule, for lack of a better term, of things. I just can't bring myself to believe they're going to put it. There's already a rule where they can eject somebody out of a game. So I don't take it to the step of targeting. I just don't want to see it, so I can't bring myself to even think it's going to be part of it.
Well, we'll find out what the new reality is when they have the meetings in the offseason. Adam, thanks for being with us. See you on NFL Live today. You're doing the show? We'll have a fun show today. Absolutely.
I'll be
have some
napping
fun
at home.